Your journey can only begin when the self-doubts stop. The first step is harnessing your bravery within. Believing in you is your host, Sean Dumas.
Hello and good day to you all. My name is Sean, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to another Honorable Warrior episode on Bravery Within. Today is going to be probably a little bit more of a difficult one for us gentlemen out there. And for all the guys that are out there, let me get this cleared up right now there that are listening to this podcast. Yes, you're strong. Yes, you're manly. And yes, you're amazing. No arguments there. So let's get that out of the way right away, so that way when we dive into this part where you have process of feelings and things you need to talk about and work through, you're not weak. I want to stress that right now, right out of the shotgun. I can't make that clear enough there for you. I'm a man's man. I see myself as somebody that is a leader, as somebody that's strong, and going through the loss or anything like that there is difficult for anybody to go through. So, episode 2 of the Honorable Warrior is after a divorce or breakup. I just wanted to make that very, very clear right out of the shotgun, men, that for the guys that are listening to this, we all know that you're strong. We all know that, you're basically invincible, and that's the way we are perceived, and that's the way we like to be perceived. No arguments there. That's the way I try to hold myself up and keep myself accountable to make sure that I keep everything locked up, and I do all the manly things where you don't talk about stuff, and you don't share your feelings, you don't acknowledge them, you don't do anything, because that's the way I was raised, and that's it's a lifetime of morals and values that have been drilled into me in the past 49 years that's the way you're supposed to conduct yourself. So that's why I wanted to lead out telling all the guys out there, yes, you're strong and everything else, but when you break it down, and I know you guys are not going to admit this, at least admit this to yourself. Even if you don't admit this to anybody else, admit this to yourself. Yes, you have feelings, and yes, they matter. I can't stress that enough. We were born with feelings. We were born with emotions, even though we're not supposed to talk about them or show them or anything like that. After a divorce or breakup, and we've all been through our fair share of breakups, no arguments there. Some of us have even been through a divorce, and I'm sure I've known plenty of people that have been through 2-3 divorces, and they're still going through it. And I've been fortunate enough to talk with some of these guys when you're just away from everybody else, because that's what we do, is we're not going to talk about this stuff when we're away amongst everybody. It's just not going to happen. But when you get one-on-one, and sometimes you have to be, some guys prefer to talk at a bar, or maybe you're out hunting or fishing, or, working in the garage, working on a car, whatever the manly things are that you do, and we're all basically stereotyped for doing that, is sometimes you just need to talk. You bury so much over so long that sooner or later you're going to run out of room inside. You can only compartmentalize stuff for so long, let's be honest. And I've admitted that in some of my podcasts. There's only so much you can do, and I still do it. I'm not gonna spoof you in any way, shape, or form. I still compartmentalize. I don't know how to do anything else. I have done my very, very best to try to get better at that, to try to, basically not keep so much locked in. But when you're raised like me, in the middle of podunk, and we have old world beliefs out here still. We have old school beliefs and everything else. Any way you want to say it, we still have all those around us. So us men were all raised with lock it all up, shut it all down, don't talk about it, and just pretend it never happened. But one thing that, even if you add in the loss of a loved one, so you have a divorce or a breakup or the loss of a loved one, any one of those three can be just absolutely murder to a man. And the worst part of it is women are lucky because they have an outlet. They're allowed to show their emotions. They're very sensitive creatures, and they're wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's fantastic because they're lucky to be able to basically push through those feelings and process them and move on. I'm not going to argue that point. And in many ways, I kind of envy it. because at least they have a way out to process these complex emotions. Now, I know you guys are sitting out there and you probably crossed your arms and you're probably thinking, okay, Sean, I just don't see this happening. The problem is you have been conditioned for so long to ignore your feelings, to not process them, not deal with them, not talk about them, or anything like that. It becomes second nature, and it is to me too. I'll be very, very honest with you. It's second nature to me anymore. I don't know of any other way of dealing with emotions. Now, I have helped my fair share of gentlemen through tough times, and you just have to basically let the person open up at their speed and talk about what they want. Now, yes, there has been times where I've had to poke a little bit to get them to talk, because you can see that it's influencing, it's ruining their work life, their home life. They're not moving on. It's almost like they're stuck in quicksand and they can't go anywhere. When a man loses somebody that is so important to them, either divorce or a death or a breakup or anything like that, there, whether you like to admit it or not, that bothers us. I mean, we take those hurt. I mean, and I know it's not fun to talk about. I'm not saying anything about that, but you still have to acknowledge at least those feelings, and we do by in the privacy of the garage. Or if somebody like me, I go out for drives, and that's when sometimes I work through some of the complex feelings that I have, and it may come down to where I'm just standing there screaming at the trees, or I'm walking through a creek, or playing in the water, or just sitting there looking over a meadow. At some point, you have to process the feelings, and when a relationship ends, either divorce or breakup, it hurts. I mean, it can destroy a man all the way to the core, and we're not allowed to talk about it. It can destroy our future relationships, because it's like we still have all this hurt, we still have all this pain that is sitting there gnawing at us, and essentially after a while it just turns into poison. And it doesn't matter how long the relationship is. It could have been 6 months. It could have been 10 years. It could have been 30 years. It could have been, the loss of a parent, or the loss of an aunt or an uncle, or your best friend, or something like that there. Those things hurt. No matter what you care to admit it, no matter how much you say, I'm a man, I'm tough, I can take anything. Yes, we can. And I'm right there with you, standing there, right by your side saying, yes, there isn't anything that I can't handle. But I also had to acknowledge, especially for like my weight loss journey that I'm on, I had to acknowledge and start working through some of these feelings, because I used food to comfort me when I was too stressed out and I didn't basically have anywhere else to turn, because like I said, we're not allowed to talk about it. I turned to food, and that's why I was over 300 pounds overweight, because I used food as my therapist. Now, that's not a healthy way of doing it, and I know there's a lot of men out there that don't. A lot of them will start starving themselves. I mean, I've had friends that literally starve themselves almost to death, and I've had to basically cram a cheeseburger down their throat to get them to eat again. But a lot of them will turn to drugs and alcohol, because the pain is so intense and so painful that the only way to basically to get through it is to talk about it, to acknowledge it, to work through it. And until you do that, it's almost like a poison that is sitting inside you that is just starting to eat you alive. And I have had my fair share of run-ins with that. I have lost that battle many times, where it just gets to you, and it gets to be so overwhelming after a while. I mean, there's just no other way of saying it. So instead of processing these things, what I ended up doing is I shut down. I ignored my feelings. It's like, okay, well, if I ignore them, then, it'll just go away. It'll just, it'll just be gone. Well, that's like sticking your head in the sand and hoping the problem will go away, but it doesn't. It's still there. That pain is still there. That loss is still there. That tragedy is still there. I mean, it doesn't matter how you look at it or what classification you put on the pain. Pain is pain, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if you're a lady or if you're a man. It does not matter. Pain is pain. And when you lose somebody close to you, or just in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, divorce, breakup, a death. It doesn't matter. It still hurts a man. And men are not given enough credit for this. They're just told to suck it up and move on. And that's why I let out with the first episode. It's not okay to basically push through it. There's just no way. Sooner or later, and I mean, I know generation after generation after generation, if you go back several generations and stuff there, the men wore suits and they always frowned and they, they were just scruff and they smoked and all this stuff. You kind of had that picture of how men are perceived today, but in some respects that's outdated. And that's why when I raised my son, I raised him differently to be able to. Now he doesn't express a lot of emotions, but he's better than I am by a long shot. We've done a lot of talking. We've helped each other through some really, really tough times in his short amount of time of 28 years being on this earth. We've helped each other through so much. He's made me a better person. He's made me realize, okay, you can't keep burying things all the time, even though I still do, and I still get in trouble from my family and friends all the time about, well, you're burying it again. You need to move on. That's old school programming. It was drilled into you. You need to find a way to get around it. Well, the problem is that is so ingrained. It's 49 years ingrained into my mind. I mean, it's part basically of who I am. It's my basic makeup. How do you reprogram something like that? Something that's at your core values and your beliefs? How do you reprogram it? That is the toughest thing to ever do in your life. And I've had to do some of that through my weight loss journey. I had to start giving up on some of the grudges that I had and some of the hate that I had for people. And I got to a point where I was hanging on to that stuff for so long. It became like a leather jacket that was broken and felt comfortable. And when you wore it, you just felt, oh yeah, this is nice. You're all wrapped up in it. And the problem is I didn't even remember why I was hanging on to these grudges and stuff. But going through, like a breakup, I mean, we've all done our fair share of going through breakups and stuff, and those, tend to be just a little bit easier to move on from. I'm not downplaying anybody's pain in any way, shape, or form. It's your pain. Nobody has any right to tell you how to feel. But the problem is you need to feel. And us men, we're not allowed to feel. We're not allowed to talk about it. So it's very difficult for us to process grief. It's very for death. It's hard for us to process any of this stuff. So typically we shut down. We just ignore our feelings. I mean, when you really break it down, that's kind of what we men do, because we don't know what else to do. It's kind of like, okay, where do I go from here? I'm not supposed to talk to anybody about it, but I really need to talk to somebody about it. And that someday, somewhere down the line and stuff, if I ever get lucky, I wanted to be a counselor and I wanted to be a therapist because I wanted to work with people to try to help them through these very difficult times. I have been through my fair share of hurt and abuse and everything else in my lifetime. I've experienced so much of it. And I wanted to always be there to try to help people. And that's why I do these podcasts, is because there might be something in these podcasts that will help you. Maybe you'll see something in a little bit different, angle or direction or some other way of going about it. And these ones for the men, and I'm not trying to, basically eliminate women by any way, shape, or form. I'm not trying to do that. Maybe there's something in these ones here that women can pull out of it too. But women have the advantage on this one here because they're allowed to show their emotions. They're allowed to, act on them. They're so lucky. They get to they get to show emotion, and for us that's a foreign concept. It's like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. I don't know how to do it. When you really, you could sit down and you could sit a man, even like me. You could sit me on the couch. Let's be honest here, just for a minute here. You could sit me on the couch. You could put a chair in front of me, look me eye to eye, sit down in that chair, look me eye to eye, and say, "Tell me how you feel." And a lot of us are gonna go, I don't know. We know that we hurt. We know we have pain. We know that it cuts to the bone. We feel, it could be something we feel like they betrayed us or they left us or, just any of those really, really strong emotions. They could have dumped you for another man or a woman or whatever the case may be. But no matter what, that hurt cuts us to the bone. So even if you could sit, and I'm serious, you could sit me on the couch, put a chair in front of me, sit down in that chair, and we would look eye to eye. And you could say, all right, tell me what your feelings are. And I'm going to sit there and go, not computing, I don't understand. because we don't know how to process those emotions. When you break it down, we have been conditioned for so long. As soon as you start showing any kind of emotion when you were young, people made fun of you. People called you names. They would either, they would beat on you. I mean, they would smack you around. They would kick you. They would, gang up on you, whatever it was. And then, for somebody like me, I had the older generation of men that you basically try to learn from them. I mean, they're kind of like role models. Whether they're good role models or bad role models, doesn't matter what it is. They're role models. And you could see them not show any pain. But what I did know is that's why they were going to the bar and drinking or smoking or shooting things, or that was their way of processing in a very, very limited way. They were trying to process their emotions because they didn't have really any context. They didn't have any idea how to do it themselves. And we grew up basically the same way. And I wanted to make sure that when I was raising my son, he wasn't brought up that way. Yes, he's probably one of the strongest men that I've ever known. He's incredible. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, he stands up for everybody. He defends people. He stands up for his partner. He takes care of me at times and stuff there when things aren't going right, or helps around the house or our friends and family. And that's what I want him to be. And there has been times where he's come to me and he's broke down, and there was too much. I mean, no matter who you are, I don't care what man is out there, there is a point where there's too much. You can only take in so much. You can only compartmentalize so much. And you get to a point where there is no more room left to do that. And as sad as this is to say, and I'm not making fun of any man out there, and I'm sure is not making fun of any man that has talked to me before, but I have had men literally break down in my arms because they could not take any more. They felt like the whole world was on them. They felt like they were being crushed by this pain, by the world, by the expectations that are placed on us men, by just the overwhelming grief that they're going through. And to me, I always found that as incredibly strong. It was like, it was an honor to be in their presence as they're breaking down, that they trusted me enough that they could break down and be who they really are. And once they did, sometimes we would sit there for 4, 5, 6 hours talking, and it may have taken him a half hour to basically pull himself back together where we could start talking. But I never made fun of him. I didn't crack jokes during that time. I let him get these emotions out. And I've had my fair share of men absolutely explode at me. They have called me every name under the sun. They have taken swings at me. And I don't hold it against them because we don't know how else to get it out. Typically, when we hurt that bad, it comes out in anger. So then all of a sudden everybody's going, well, guess what there? You're just nothing but a big old fat jerk. Well, we're not, because we don't know how to process these complex emotions because we were never taught. We were never shown, because we were told, we were raised that by doing this, it's a weakness. We were weak men and we don't deserve to be called men. And that is so far not the truth, because working with these men that I've had the honor to work with these men and talk to them and help them through very, very difficult times is, to me, like I said, is an extreme honor, because we're not allowed to talk, we're not allowed to break down, we're not allowed to show weakness. So when these men finally hit their breaking point and there's nothing left, they have nowhere else to turn, they came and talked to me and they broke down. And to me, and they still, to this day, those are some of the strongest bonds that I have with another guy, is if they have problems, they know I'm not going to make fun of them. They know I'm not going to belittle them. They know I'm not judging them. The only thing that I'm trying to do is take some of that pain and take some of that anguish that is in them, take some of that anger, take some of that hatred, and take it out of them, because they need that, because they have so many years of pent-up rage and pain and everything else that goes right along with it. And that's why I led out with this episode saying, yes, men, you are strong, you are incredible. We have almost impossible things that are expected out of us. I mean, everybody expects us to be a certain way. We have to be basically like these statues, and we're supposed to, for the most part, not show anything. We're supposed to be able to weather the storm, keep right on the moving. You still have to provide for the family. You still got to take care of your partner. You still got to take care of the kids. You still have to go to work. You still have to take care of the vehicles, mow the yard, on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Everything that's expected out of us. And it's not fair because it's like we have nowhere to turn. And I'll be very, very honest. I've had plenty of friends. They'll push me away because it's just like they want to talk, but they don't know how to talk. They don't know what to say it. And in many times in the beginning, I will let them push me away because they need time to be able to process what they can. And it's not a good answer. It's not good to push your family and friends away by any way, shape, or form. And I have lost a couple friendships because of it. Because once they pushed away, it's like I couldn't get them back. I couldn't get them to talk to me. It was almost like they'd shut down and they're done. And unfortunately, they do. They get stuck in the past and they can't move on. And then that's when the drugs and the alcohol and the smoking and everything kicks in. And for me, it was food. I turned to food for everything. And like I said, over 300 pounds worth of therapy is, for a lack of better words, that's what it was. But men don't know how to process these emotions. Like I said, you can sit us down, look us eye to eye, and say, talk to me. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to sit there and you're going to get a blank look from them. And it's almost kind of like, back in the old days with the old Windows programs when you had to put the discs in to get them to boot up. And you just kind of boot in and it wouldn't do anything. It would just sit there going, not able to process. That's pretty much what we are. So then the problem is when men get to that point, people make fun of them. They think they're even weaker, and that is not the truth, because these guys, they need to be in a safe zone where they can talk about this stuff and get that poison out of them. And you don't always have to talk about just bad things. You can talk about good things, because you need to celebrate that stuff too. There's so much expected out of men. And it's overwhelming. Let's be honest. I've been a man now 49 years. I've been on this earth. I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. And there's just the expectations that are there for men are almost insurmountable. I mean, they seem to get taller and taller, and people expect more and more out of us all the time. And it's like, where's the breaking point? Wait a minute here. I mean, I can barely handle what I have now. Why are you piling more on me? Why are you doing this to me? And then you get all these, breakups. It's like, okay, here I am, busting my tail, trying to pay the bills, put money in the bank, take care of the family and everything else. Then all of a sudden I got to deal with a divorce, or I got to deal with a breakup. It's like, wait a minute here, where did this come from? And granted, yes, I knew, I'm not gonna lie, probably a year or two before my divorce or my marriage ended, I knew we were heading down the wrong way. And it didn't matter what I did, no matter the conversations or trying to change things or trying to be there or anything like that. I couldn't fix it. And that's what men do. We fix things. We want to be there. We want to, make it better. That's kind of what's expected of us. And that's how we know that, in a manner of speaking, that's kind of how we show our love, I guess. Is we fix things. We're there. If you need to talk, we'll be there as your sounding board. But the problem is, it's okay if a woman is doing the talking or the complaining or the screaming or the yelling or anything like that, because they're getting that stuff out of their system, which is fantastic. They're so lucky to be able to do that. But with men, it's like, okay, you can walk up and you go, hey, how's it going? Fine. You want a beer? Yeah. And there's the conversation right there. But it's like, no, you because if they're anything like me, I'll be honest here. Once you basically break open that bottle that has all your pain in it, has all your anger, has all your, broken dreams, broken relationships. Once you break that open, it's almost like a volcano. And you can't put the lid back on it. You let the genie out of the bottle to turn a phrase. It's like, okay, you want to do this? Here we go. And then all these emotions come out. And I have accidentally done this a couple times with people that I've been involved with. And it's cost me relationships because they're not ready for the emotions that come pouring out of us. Everybody thinks that, we're basically, the only thing, we got two emotions, basically it's sex and anger. That's pretty much all they think that makes up men. Well, nothing can be truer. We love, we lust, there's jealousy, there is anger, there is sacrifice, we have all the same emotions that women have, but we're not allowed to talk about them. We're not allowed to say anything. We're not allowed, to do anything with them. So when we run into a divorce or a breakup, or like I said, if we lose somebody that we love near and dear to our hearts, parents, family, friends, a close friend or whatever, for lack of better words, we short circuit. Because it's like, okay, now we got all this, okay. So then you go back to your basic programming, your core beliefs, and say, okay, this is what you do. You pile it all up, you put it in a box, and you tie it all up, and you throw it in the water, and you don't process it, and you don't worry about it, and you move on. Because everybody else, you need to be there for everybody else. Well, yes, we do, and that's our job as men, is to be there. We're supposed to be there, and we're supposed to take care of everybody else. But we're also supposed to fix things. And how do you fix things when you lose somebody? You can't. There's no fixing. It's like, okay, what do I do? So that's why some will shut down. We'll ignore our feelings. We become workaholics. I mean, I dug into work big time instead of trying to process the emotions, because it was just like, okay, yeah, okay, well, okay, and now they're laid to rest, so I guess we can move on now, because that's what we're supposed to do. I pushed away family and friends. I just didn't, because it meant that I had to acknowledge those feelings and I had to do something with them. And if you don't do that, you can lock them away and pretend they don't exist. Well, that's what most of us men do. And I'm telling you guys, you can only do that for so long. And like I said, that basically, I use food as therapy, and that's why I was over 300 pounds overweight. And no matter what you do, if you turn to smoking, or if you turn to drinking, or drugs, or anything like that, all the unhealthy things that are not good for us. I mean, it's just sometimes, and I've had friends, what they've done is they've turned to basically sex, and they turn into sex freaks, because they're trying to find love again. They figure if they can feel that way, that'll help take away the pain. Well, that doesn't work either, because all you're basically doing is putting a Band-Aid on the ocean and hoping it doesn't leak. And I don't think I have to go very far to say that doesn't work, guys. And I know it hurts, and it's tough to admit for us to flat out say, I need help, and I'll be the first one to admit it. And I know already my family that's listening to this through their speakers is screaming at me right now. Sean, you're the last one that should be saying that, because you never ask for help. And they're right. I don't, because I don't know how to ask for help, because I don't want to inconvenience anybody. And our feelings are kind of the same way, because they're really the most powerful thing we're ever going to come up against. And it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to go to another country where they speak another language, and I'm going to get dropped in the middle of the country, and I'm expected to survive and be able to speak their language. Well, if you don't know how to speak the language, if you don't understand it, you can't write it, you can't talk it, you can't do anything, what do? You basically pull away from everybody and just basically shut down. The feelings are the same way, because we don't know how to process them. We don't know. I mean, we can get hit with grief. We can get hit with hurt. We can get hit with betrayal. If somebody was jealous, if somebody cheated on you, there's so many complex emotions. And the problem is we're not allowed to process them. We're not allowed to do anything. We're not allowed to acknowledge them. And it makes it so very difficult, because ultimately that ruins future relationships, because you kind of drag, for lack of better words, you drag that baggage into the next relationship, because it's kind of like, okay, well, we'll try it, because maybe it'll just go away. Maybe this new person will love me in a different way, and then that will just take like an eraser and get rid of all those feelings. Well, I hate to break your heart. It doesn't work that way. I thought so. I'll be honest. I thought that's the way it works, and I thought that's the way I could escape a lot of pain, by getting in another relationship with somebody. And I found out it doesn't work, because those complex emotions basically jilted me and basically ruined my upcoming relationship, because I still saw everything in that painful way. I was so afraid that they were going to hurt me again. And then once you start loving somebody again, it's almost like, okay, they're going to betray me. They're going to basically run me over. They're going to rip my heart out of my chest, just like what the last one did. And then here, not only do I have the pain of the last one, now I have the pain of this relationship. Now I got twice the amount of pain, and I don't know how to deal with it any more than I could with the last one. It wasn't until I started, as much as I hate to say it, is you got to talk about it. I mean, you have to find somebody that you're comfortable with that's going to accept you for who you are and not judge you. And in this world, that is extremely difficult anymore, to find somebody like that. That's why sometimes it took years before a man would trust me enough to talk to me about his innermost feelings. And those feelings are still locked up inside me. I will not discuss those with anybody. I am not going to betray their trust by talking with somebody else about them. Those are their feelings. Nobody has the right to tell you how to feel, but there needs to be something out there that's going to help men and how to process those complex emotions and allow them a safe place to talk about them. And that's what I'm hoping that some of these podcasts will do. Is it's not only, I'm talking about the mental health of men. Everybody worries about, oh yeah, he's got six-pack abs or Vin Diesel arms or, huge pecs or whatever that is. Yes, that is muscle strength, but to me, that's not the true strength of a man. The true strength of a man is his character and his core beliefs. To me, that's what makes a man a man. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And the problem is nowhere in any of that did I say, okay, here's a little manual. Chapter 1, how to process your emotions. Chapter 2, moving on after that. Chapter 3, the new relationship. I don't know of any manual out there that we come with that you automatically get that, so you can read it and say, okay, well, this is what you're supposed to do when somebody cheats on you, or this is what you're supposed to do when somebody leaves you, or somebody passes away, or whatever it is. It's like a step-by-step manual. Hey, we have them for cars and how to fix cars and how to fix electronics and everything else, but there's basically no manual that I'm aware of. I'm sure there's a book out there somewhere. I'm sure somebody smart, way smarter than I am, wrote a book and how to process these emotions. I'm sure there is. But whether you're going to get a man to read it or not, we don't even read directions. Let's be honest. So why are we going to read a book that tells us how to process our emotions? So that's why I thought if you just listen to this podcast, hopefully there's something in there. But I'm going to be honest about, something else here. There's a lot of honesty, and that's the reason I'm being so honest. And these are true. I'm not making these up for the podcast. If anybody that knows me, listen out there, they know that I'm telling the truth 100%. And I feel that if I'm honest with you, then you can be honest with me, or be honest with yourself at least. And being honest with yourself is tough to do, but if you are, I think you're going to make a lot of progress in moving forward on to your next and more healthy relationship. But when my mom passed away, she was the most nearest and dearest person to me. There was nobody that was closer to me. She was my biggest fan with all my books when I was writing. She was my biggest fan, and she helped me with my son, and she taught me how to be a good father and how to be there to take care of my son and what I needed to do to make sure he was taken care of and everything else. She was my greatest fan. On my bad days, I could go talk to her. Yes, I was a mama's boy. I didn't live in the basement or anything. I had my own life. I had my own wife. I had my own son and everything else. But she was the most nearest and dearest person in my entire life to me. And when I lost her she was only 62 when she passed on. And when I lost her, the shock, it took a while to come around. It was kind of, we went through, and I was told rather harshly from my father that she's dead. That's how it was addressed to me. I picked up the phone, and it was, your mother's dead. And that's how I was told, and there was nothing else behind it. Because he didn't know how to process his emotions, and it was overwhelming for him. And after we go through all the things of the funeral and laying her to rest, and the after effects of not having her there when, there was a time that I needed to talk to her, and I went to dial her phone number, and it was like, what do I do now? I can't call her. I can't talk to her. I need to talk to her. And she's, she's there in spirit, but I can't talk to her. I can't get that hug that I need. And basically at that point, I short-circuited, and that was it. I broke down. and I'm not afraid to admit it, I bawled. I bawled in a supermarket parking lot because I couldn't drive anymore. It finally had all hit, and I didn't know how to process these complex emotions. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know what the next step was. I didn't realize that if you're going to move on, after, no matter if it's a divorce or a breakup or a loss of a loved one, it doesn't matter. You have to find a way to start moving forward again. And that is the hardest thing to do, because in some ways you feel like you're basically spitting on the memory of the person that you love, because you're moving on. And nothing can be further from the truth, because at some point life has to move on. And I don't want anybody that I love that's close to me, when I pass on, I don't want them getting stuck in the past. I want them to move on and continue to live their lives. But I didn't know how to basically get through those complex feelings. I had never lost anybody like that close to me before. So when those feelings hit, and it didn't hit it all at once. I mean, I got through the funeral. I got through all of that stuff. I got through all the people telling me how sorry they are for me, and all this other stuff. It wasn't until a couple weeks after that the reality set in. But I still had to take care of my family. I still had to go to work. I still had to, still move on. So basically, after that breakdown for about 10 minutes in the parking lot, I locked it all back up again. I just compartmentalized it, and I didn't do anything with it. I'd go for drives in the hills, and I would try to figure out how to do it. I mean, it's scary. I mean, for all intents purposes, let's be honest, for men, feelings are scary, emotions are scary, because we don't know what to do with them, because they can overwhelm us so fast, and it's like, we're not allowed to be this way. And it took me a long time. I mean, I lost her over 5 years ago. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I am still processing. I am still trying. I've accepted she's no longer here. And that first step is the biggest thing. And that's the hardest one to do. From there on out, it gets a little bit easier. It kind of goes into the 5 stages of grief. And the 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And everybody goes through these in one way or another. They may not go in this order, but for the vast majority, they do. Denial, just basically, you're going to say, oh, well, no, this can't be possible. This isn't happening. They're going to be there. I just need to call them. I need to go find them. And denial is trying to help us, because that overwhelming shock is so much. And like I said, I short-circuited, and it was just like, okay, I got nothing. I was just like, I instantly went numb. And it's like, I don't know where to go from here. And then you start thinking about, what they meant to you. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. We had plans for this weekend to go do something. But denial kind of helps that grieving process kick off. And it's supposed to basically help minimize the pain of the loss. And it does basically give you a starting ground. The next one, and this is where I broke down on the parking lot for one reason, and is anger. It's the next step, because basically we're finally admitting, okay, this is real. Okay, we have to do this. We have to go down the road, and accepting that new reality is very, very difficult. And that's why everybody thinks that, well, that's all men is anger. Well, it's not. It's because this is about the only way that we know how to let our feelings out is to get angry. And I beat up my steering wheel quite a few times. I'd go out to the shed with a hammer and beat on a 2x4 to get that hurt out of me. I didn't know what else to do, because I was so angry, because she was taken away from me so early. And I didn't get to spend as much time with her as I wanted to. So that turned into anger. And then the bargaining come along, the third step. And it's like, okay, maybe what I can do is I can talk to God and say, okay, why don't you take me instead? Or if maybe I was a better father, or if maybe I was a better son, maybe if I would have done something a little bit better, or been there more, or whatever it is, maybe that will bring her back. Maybe that will help minimize the pain. Well, unfortunately it doesn't, but we all go through that step of bargaining to try to cope with the loss. You get to a point where you're so desperate that you'll do anything to minimize the pain. And it's very, very difficult to get through. But bargaining, is the third step. The fourth step, this is when I lost it in the parking lot, is depression. We're starting to, whether we want to or not, we're starting to process that grief. And depression is so dangerous because you can get stuck in this step before you get to the final one. And so many people get stuck in depression because it's very, very, it's almost, at some point, it's almost comforting. And it was for me as I was trying to get through the loss of my divorce and then trying to get through the loss of my mom. And it was getting to be way too much. I mean, that's why I said I gained over 300 pounds to get through it. But depression, I've seen too many people get stuck there, and I've helped a lot of friends out of this stage, and it takes time. And I, like I said, I can't tell you how many times I've had men break down in my arms because they can't take anymore because they don't know how to process these complex feelings. And they are. Our feelings are just as strong as what the ladies' feelings are. It's just they are allowed to express them and we're not. That's the huge thing. So we get stuck in depression, the fourth stage. And it's very, very easy. So all I can say is don't get stuck in that stage. You have to move on. And the final one is acceptance. And this is when we finally can start moving on. The pain has really subsided. I mean, you're always going to have some pain. There's, no matter what you do, the pain's always going to be there. There's always, to me, they say time heals all wounds. I don't agree with that at all. Nothing. That whole thing just upsets me because the best that I can do for the loss of a loved one is I'm hoping it scabs over and stays scabbed over. I've accepted the loss of my mom. I've accepted the loss of my wife. Because she moved on. It took me a while to move on. She moved on a lot faster than I did, and that's fine. I'm happy for her. I want her to be happy. I'm not. We didn't work out, but it doesn't mean that I want her whole life ruined by any way, shape, or form. And acceptance basically helps you to move on. That's a tough one to get to, and once you finally get there, you're through most of the pain. And like I said, I'm still not through all the pain. I'm still processing over 5 years later. My divorce was finalized 13 years ago. And it took me a long time to accept the divorce, even though, I asked for it, but it still took me time to process it all and to move on. It's not easy. And when men go through that, it's just kind of like, okay, this is, very, very difficult. So, some of the ways, that basically, okay, guys, I'm going to give you a couple coping skills that I found, that I've done these, and it does help. These are not easy. These are huge steps that you have to go through because it goes against everything that we have been taught. So, hang in there with me if you're if you're still listening. Please, please let me help you. The first one is, and I've told you already, talk about it. I can't stress that enough. And I know we're not good at that. I know it's very, very difficult for us. But let me tell you something. I have nothing but the utmost respect, and I think you are incredibly brave to talk about it. Because, yes, we don't know how those emotions are going to come out, and sometimes you come out screaming, sometimes you come out. It's all right, and I know you're gonna think, oh, there's no way to do it. It's all right to let some tears flow, guys, because there's so much pain and so much that has built up. Sometimes that's the only way that it's going to come out, and you need to talk about it. You need to, even if you don't understand the emotions, and even if you don't understand what's going on, talk to somebody that you can trust about it to help you get through. And even if that's a licensed therapist, it does not matter. Like I said, I am so proud of you for being able to talk about it. And the next step is accepting help. And like I said, I know my family's screaming at me when I say accepting help because I'm not the best at it. I'm your typical man. I'll be there for everybody else. I'll be there to support them. I'll be their rock. I'll be their island, whatever they need to be to get through. But for me to accept help is nearly impossible. But it wasn't until that I started accepting a little bit of help and started talking a little bit where that pain got manageable. Instead of being so overwhelming, like you're sitting out in the middle of the ocean and the tides are constantly coming over your head and it's like it's trying to drown you. Once I started talking about it and I accepted some help and people, started being there for me, I allowed them to be there for me, those tides started to settle down. It wasn't so overwhelming. I didn't feel like I was going to drown anymore. And like I said, that's one of the hardest things for me to do is to accept help. I'm not going to lie about that. But just know you're not being selfish. You're not being rude. This is what you need to get through to process these emotions. You have to accept a little bit of help is what it comes down to. So like I said, I'm extremely proud of you for being able to talk and accept for help. And these come in baby steps. It's not just something like you can just jump in for. I mean, some people, I suppose there are some, and I congratulate you. That's wonderful if you can do that. I was never that way, and I'm still not that way. I have to do everything in little bits and little footsteps. Another thing that really, really helped me get through the loss of everything is memorializing your loved one. For like my mom, I have a whole shelf in my bedroom that is dedicated to her. It's got her picture. It's got stuff that I gave her for Christmas. It's got stuff that she gave me that I absolutely love. And it sits on a shelf. And that's when I have my down days, I'll sit there and it helps me to see that because it kind of gives me the strength to keep going, because it was, like I said, she was my biggest cheerleader. She was always there for me. No matter what, I could always talk to her. If I had a bad day, she'd sit there and she wouldn't judge me. She would help me all the way through. And there was a couple times, I never swore in front of my mom, but once in a while, a damn might come out or something like that there. And I felt bad because I didn't like swearing in front of my mom, because I figured that was a sign of disrespect if you swore in front of her. But she would look and she'd smile at me, and I'd apologize. She says, no. She says, you need to get it out. You need to talk. So memorializing someone that you loved in that kind of loss will help you. Write a poem. Talk to a picture. It helps me out all the time. There's times that I'll light like a fall candle for her because she loved fall and I love fall. And it's kind of like it helps bridge that gap where she's not there anymore. Plant a tree in their honor. I've done that. I've got bushes in my yard that are dedicated to her. When you lose somebody, you just have to find a way to process it. And it doesn't matter, like the divorce and stuff. It took me a long time. I accepted my ex-wife. We're not together anymore. But if she needed something, I would still help her because that's my son's mom. And I make every effort that I possibly can to keep everything as civilized as I can and always be there if she needs something, or, if my son needs something. I don't want him to feel uncomfortable talking about his mom in any way, shape, or form. I want him to feel comfortable about that. But the loss is still mine. I lost a wife out of it. I lost 17 years of my life that went right out the window with a piece of paper. So it took some time for me to work through it, and that's where when I started talking about it, I accepted help. It really helped out in the long run. Some people, another idea is scheduling activities. Keep yourself busy, but not too busy. You have to be careful with this one. Go to the gym, meet with friends. Like me, I'll play cards with my family, which helps me get through it. We'll watch movies together. We'll listen to music. We'll go out for supper. Anything like that there where you can spend time with them, that's going to help you out too. And it doesn't matter who it's with, as long as you feel comfortable. And you can laugh a little bit, and if you do start talking about stuff, they're not going to judge you or talk down to you or anything. They're going to let you be you. Those are the people that you want to be around and be with, and let them into your life. It's hard. It's scary, guys. I understand that. It is very, very difficult to let people in, but you need somebody like that. Even if it's a good friend and stuff there, where you talk and if you can be there for somebody else, don't judge them. Be supportive. Do whatever you can to help them, and just let them be them. Let them process those feelings and let them get it out. And if all else fails, talk to a professional. There's nothing wrong with talking to a therapist because they're trained. They've went through the classes. They know what to do. They know the next steps. They know how to get you through. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't ever think that you're weak by going and talking to a therapist or a counselor or anybody like that. Don't ever think that, guys. You guys are strong. I know you are. There's, you can sit out there and do an arm wrestling competition or go out fishing or whatever. I know that you guys are strong. There's no doubt about it. But there's a point where you can be too strong. At some point, you have to let the walls down a little bit and accept some help and talk about these feelings. They're not easy. I don't do well by doing it, and I'm hoping these podcasts will help you, because in some ways I've admitted some personal stuff in this podcast to you guys. So if I can do this in a podcast to talk to you guys about it, you guys should be able to talk to a friend or a therapist to help you through it, because it really does help. You just have to do it a little at a time and allow yourself to, once you let it out, then you got to go back and think about it a little bit and say, okay, this is perfect. Okay, I'm making progress, and keep moving forward. But if that means getting some professional help, that's awesome. Don't think anything less. You guys are amazing. You're strong. You're extremely brave for doing that. So, all I can say is those are some of the things that I have personally done, and they work. They help me through a lot of grief and a lot of emotion. Just know that even though you're processing all this stuff, everything takes time. Takes small steps. Some days you're not going to make any, but you're not going to be able to move forward. But then the next day you might take 2 or 3 steps forward and make a bunch of progress. Just to, give yourself time to heal and grieve at your speed. Nobody has any right to tell you how to feel, but make sure you feel, make sure you process these emotions, and they're not easy. Take the time to talk to somebody, and like I said, if you need to get some help, get some help. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't think anything less of it, because nobody worries about our mental health, and that's one thing that we need to be more protective of, is our own mental health. And that's one thing that I'm working on with my own weight loss journey, is I'm working on those things. And it's not easy. It's a very, very long road. But trust me, it's worth it. Take the time to do all that, because once you do that, your next relationship will be happy and healthy. You're setting yourself up to win and not live in the past. So once you process the complex emotions, the healing process begins, and life gets so much easier. You can make decisions. You can find somebody. You're fishing. You're hunting. You're golfing. You're whatever it is, your activities that you enjoy doing, you get more enjoyment out of. So trust me on that one there. So I've noticed that by the clock on my computer here and stuff here, I'm over on time. So I'm going to, as always, end this podcast here with the normal dad joke of the day, because I want you to smile after all of this stuff here. So if you're ready to go, here we go. Do you know what you call a factory that makes okay products? A satisfactory. I knew you'd like that one there. Let the eye rolls begin. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are amazing. Stay strong out there. Know that I've got your back, and I'm always here to help you in any way, shape, or form. You can get a hold of me at SeanGMorris@gmail.com if you have any questions, and I'll help wherever I can. And as always, all my love and support